Welcome to User News. Another video for you. Firstly, Tigray, Adigrat, the city of Tigray, where humanitarian crisis is deepening. More than 100,000 IDPs have entered Adigrat. Secondly, an Ethiopian athlete who became symbol of Oromo protests in 2016 a few hours ago spoke about the Oromo Liberation Army. The athlete seems to be opposing dialogue with Oromo Liberation Army. Thirdly, drone strikes continue on Wellega and on Central Oromia. And lastly, viewers, in fighting between Puntland and Somaliland forces, some casualties are being reported. Somaliland is self-declared country in the Horn of Africa. Somalia's position is that Somaliland is part of Somalia. What happened there? What was the reason of this eruption of violence on Puntland, Somaliland border? Puntland is part of Somalia. Somalia says Somaliland is also its territory. Somaliland denies. Firstly, viewers, Adigrat, a city of Tigray. We know that aid is arriving in Tigray after the signing of the peace agreement. Aid convoys entered Tigray. They reached Mesabre, Elamata, Shire, Makale. What about Adigrat? Reportedly, no aid has arrived in Adigrat so far. How many IDPs are in Adigrat? Tigray official news sources claim that around 150,000 IDPs have entered Adigrat recently. So there is worsening humanitarian crisis in Adigrat because tens of thousands are without any shelter, without food, without aid. Aid organizations have not entered Adigrat so far. Eritrean military is not in Adigrat. It is at a distance from Adigrat. I think Eritrean military is in Zilambasa. So people from Zilambasa are fleeing towards Adigrat from neighboring areas they were fleeing for weeks. And now there is large number of IDPs in Adigrat. Aid organizations must step up their operations and they must reach the people in need in Adigrat. Secondly, if the withdrawal of Eritrean military and Amhara forces starts in Tigray, these IDPs will return to their houses or from where they are. From where they have arrived in Adigrat. So that is why withdrawal of Eritrean military and Amhara forces can solve several humanitarian issues in Tigray, but withdrawal is linked to disarmament of TPLF fighters, Tigray fighters. Secondly, viewers, an Ethiopian athlete from the Oromia region, he is an Oromo, who became symbol of Oromo protests against EPRDF government, talked to Ethiopian state news agency a few hours ago. His name is Feyisa Lilesa. Feyisa Lilesa. Feyisa Lilesa is a long distance runner who won several medals for Ethiopia. In 2016, in Rio Olympics, he won silver medal for Ethiopia. And when he crossed finish line back then in 2016, he raised his arms in a protest. This gesture was a symbol of Oromo protests against TPLF-led EPRDF government. Oromos led protests and the protests later led to change of government in Ethiopia. EPRDF Prime Minister had to resign and PM Abiy came to power. Then TPLF was removed altogether from Addis Ababa. A Prosperity Party was formed. Tensions between TPLF and Prosperity Party rose, and that led to start of armed conflict in November 2020. When Feyisa Lilesa protested in 2016 in Rio Olympics, he did not return to Ethiopia. He said that he could face persecution, so he remained out of Ethiopia. But when PM Abiy took office in 2018, he invited all dissidents to Ethiopia. So he returned to Ethiopia. He's very close to PM Abiy. He spoke a few hours ago about Oromo Liberation Army. Government media calls OLA Shene. He used very strong language against OLA. He said they are bandits, robbers, who are working for their own interests. They don't care about people. They are committing atrocities. They have backing by some elements in the government. Some elements in the government are against action on Shene, and dialogue cannot solve the problem. Some elements within OLA might be reformed through dialogue, but not majority of them. That is why strong action is needed. Feyisa Lilesa seems to be advocating an armed operation, a security operation against OLA, which is continuing. He's close to PM Abiy, so it seems to be government's position too. That is what I have been saying for the past 2 weeks, that government is not going to start any dialogue with OLA at this point of time. Government wants to weaken OLA militarily. That is why drone strikes intensifying in Oromo. Purpose is to weaken OLA militarily. Then OLA will have to make concessions, like what happened in Tigray, that through military operation, Tigray forces were weakened, and then TPLF made several concessions unexpected in Pretoria, South Africa. The same is being followed, strategy in Oromo. Feyisa Lilesa is close to PM Abiy. That is why it seems to be government's unofficial position that government will intensify its operation against OLA before start of any talks with Oromo Liberation Army. Thirdly, viewers, drone strikes are being reported in West Wellega, Western Zone, OLA's headquarters. Unknown number of casualties reported. Almost on daily basis, we are receiving reports of drone strikes in West Wellega, East Wellega, Central Oromo, West Shiva. And in West Wellega, it is being claimed that some transport, public transports were hit, and some passengers died. It is being claimed by pro-OLA news sources. And yesterday, an Oromo activist close to OLA claimed that in an attack by Ethiopian Air Force, 85 government soldiers were killed. The attack was carried out by mistake on a camp of Ethiopian army, federal forces, some say regional forces in Central Oromo. We could not confirm the claim made by that activist, though still we are trying to confirm. No statement from the government side about the attack in Central Oromo leading to killing of 85 government soldiers. But it shows that West Oromo is the new battlefront now. East Wellega, West Wellega, Kellam Wellega, and 2 days ago some pro-government activists claimed that Jalmaro had been wounded in a strike and Jal Sanye was killed, Central Front commander of OLA. Again, no confirmation so far, they just claims. We are waiting for some sort of video or some visual confirmation about Jalmaro and Sanye. Where are they? Are they alive? But that just shows that Western Oromo is the new area on which government forces will focus in coming days and weeks. There is calm in northern Ethiopia, ceasefire holding, but resurgence of fighting and violence being seen in Western Ethiopia, Western Oromo. Lastly, viewers, on Tuesday, fighting erupted on Somaliland Puntland border. Puntland is a regional state of Somalia. Somalia says Somaliland is also its territory. Somaliland denies it is a self-declared country in the Horn of Africa, unrecognized by the world community. Fighting happened in Bahudle district on the border, Puntland Somaliland border. At least 3 casualties are being confirmed. Somaliland Army's Major Dhagwene confirmed that one of Somaliland's soldiers was injured and that Somaliland's forces had captured some vehicles of Puntland forces. At least 3 casualties on both sides are being reported. Dispute is territorial dispute. Somaliland forces took control of Boame, a town. And since then, Puntland has been saying that its forces will take back Boame, its part of Puntland. Border demarcation is an issue. Somaliland claims that its original border should be restored, like the borders were when Somaliland was under Britain's control. So Somaliland still has its claim to some areas which are part of other regions of Somalia. Tensions there, no fighting today, but casualties confirmed and several injured. There could be resurgence of violence on Puntland's Somaliland border if there is no solution to this problem. Thank you for watching.